You set foot on foreign soil. Only this land isn't ruled by any country or government. In this land, we celebrate music. In this land, we celebrate games. In this land, we celebrate those who compose video game music. Welcome to the VG Embassy. Welcome and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the VG Embassy. This is a show centered around video game music and the amazing online community of fans and podcasters that enjoy it. My name's Ed, and on each episode I'll take the role of Prime VGM Minister and invite a guest VG Ambassador onto the show to share with us their own video game music culture, or I may share a part of my culture on a solo show. We have, I think for once, a repeat of a theme that we've done in the past today. I think it was, I don't remember which episode it was, but it was the Dyad Challenge. I had my very good friend, Ben Dishman, aka The Dyad, on with me, and we had a super fact-filled informational session, and a lot of you guys really enjoyed the stuff that we went over. We had a little quiz at the end. So Ben, thank you for coming back on the show. I have this show has been in the works for quite a long time, so I'm glad we can finally get this down on paper and into people's ears.
Yeah, I finally stopped dragging my feet, and I've come out of my hibernation bearing gifts of silly research.
It's funny. I was looking at the document and like going through the past edits that we made because Google, lets you do that. Mm-hmm. We started originally making notes on this show in October of 2018, and now it's May of 2019. So it's been about 7 months in the making.
Yeah.
But I think we've got a lot of quality material here. It's definitely worth the wait.
Right.
For sure.
And for listeners at home who are not intimately familiar with my personal timeline, October of 2018 is the month that my son was born, so that is part of the slowdown on my end. What took me a little bit longer than expected to get my research done, but I'm glad you stuck with me, and I'm glad that it was well received because I had a lot of fun, and you can never really tell when you're doing an oddball show like this how people are going to take it. So I was very happy that people seem to enjoy it.
Yeah, and having two kiddos myself, I can't fault you at all because they take up a whole lot of personal time. So, since then, we at least got to do that blind listen episode on Nova Storm, which was a lot of fun.
Agreed.
And I went back and I did play that game after we talked about it.
Oh,
and
nice.
I played all three. I played three versions of it. I played I got my hands on the DOS game and went through that. And then I got a copy on 3DO and I played that and checked out the PlayStation version as well. So they're all entirely different games. They all have different full motion video sequences. Like once you get into the actual game, it's more or less the same except for some UI elements, but they have entirely different cinematic sequences, which is weird that they went through all that work to make three entirely different types of games for those three systems.
Yeah, especially it's not like it's not like a licensed game where the characters are some important element of it. It's like to revamp a game like that for three different systems and just slap the same name on it. It's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Which was the best one?
Well, it's a toss-up because the PC version I felt was the most playable. Mm-hmm. It had really good controls. You could use the mouse to move around on the screen, so it felt a little more analog. The PlayStation version had much cleaner sound and video, but was way more difficult because it was a digital-only joypad that you could use, and it was much faster, so it was a lot harder to dodge, incoming projectiles and stuff. So my award is going to go to the DOS version, I think, just in terms of, and also the DOS version had the soundtrack that we listened to for the show, so I was already very intimately familiar with it. So So that's the one that I enjoyed the most, I think. But the PlayStation one is good if you want to see better quality versions of the really grainy FMV that was in the DOS version. So you can actually tell what things are.
I think I'll stick with a Let's Play.
Yeah, I would too. It wasn't with the DOS version. You're able to hex edit the executable and give yourself invincibility. So that's kind of how I just kind of breezed through it without having to worry about dying over and over again.
We need Scotty Mac to record a Let's Play.
Oh, that would be awesome with some voiceover. That would be great. That would be fantastic. So for those who haven't heard the original Dyad Challenge, Ben, why don't you explain what exactly it is that we are doing here tonight?
I would love to. So in the vein of the VG Embassy's sharing of VGM culture, my own podcast, which the Dyad presents, I do kind of zany research on stuff. It doesn't have to be related to the game or the composer or anything really. It's just something that tickles my fancy. Let's see, previous episodes of mine have been on history of video game music podcasts, salsa music. After every track, I will usually throw out some research about some topic or another. And so last time and this time as well, we have, as the challenge part of the title would imply, we have presented our track lists to each other, and we have decided to do some research and then present what we have found on the other person's tracks. If I've made that more complicated than it needs to be. Sorry.
Yeah, and the research is kind of broad in a sense, because on your show you go on. Sometimes you will actually explain something about the game itself, or the developers, or the composer. But other times you'll take the general topic, or time period, or location that the game is from, and research a topic based on historical facts or scientific facts, or
exactly.
Whatever. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to be talking about here might be related to the game, but it might be coming out of left field, and there's only a very kind of tangential likeness between the actual game and the information. All right, so let's get into the music. Actually, before we do that, we do have one more special guest with us tonight. Special guest, say hello.
Hello.
Logan is here. He's just going to be here for the beginning of the episode. We're just going to do our first little research topic together because he helped me out for this next track that's coming up. Logan, how are you?
Good.
What have you been playing lately? What video games?
Well, the new VR on the Nintendo Labo on the Switch.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, huh? Mm-hmm. You got it for your birthday, and I've been spending the last 2 weeks doing nothing but folding cardboard. Hours and hours of folding cardboard and inserting tabs into slots. And
nasatan tabs. Tablets.
Yes. But actually, it's really, really cool. I'm going to talk a little bit about it on the next Embassy exclusive, which will be way before this show actually airs. So it'll be like episode 10, I think. If you want to hear about Nintendo Labo, go listen to Embassy exclusive number 10. And I'll play a song from it too on that one. So anyways, so Logan, are you excited to share some research?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, Ben, we're going to start off with you and your first pick for us. What are you going to choose tonight?
So I picked a track from a game called Star Versus. It is a Nintendo game from 2015, composed by Knife City, aka Luke Silas, and the track is called Passing Horizons.
Wait, did you say a Nintendo game from 2015?
What?
This is nonsense.
What?
This is Sparta.
Really?
All right, we'll be right back after we listen to this supposed nonsense.
That was Passing Horizons from the game Star Versus, composed by Knife City, aka Luke Silas. What'd you guys think?
What'd you think, Logan?
That was the best.
Yeah, you really liked it?
Yes.
You're a chiptune fanatic. I raised you right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What'd you like about it, Logan?
Well, I like that it's kind of like a battle theme, where like two stars are trying to like go from one side to the other.
Kind of like stars racing against each other, like stars shooting through the galaxy or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely
And it's like
see
a
that.
split screen and it's like different versions for more players.
Yeah.
That must be a testament to the way that the composer made the song, because that's kind of similar to the way the game is already. Anyways, so
Yeah, I get a kind of like a speed racer type, like a Battletoads. What's the tunnels? What are those
the
called?
turbo
when you're-
tunnels.
Yeah, like something like that, where you're like flying down. You kinda get
Yep.
that.
I like how it's a little bit backwards. He's using the square channels for like that kind of arpeggiated low end, and then using the triangle is kind of like a flute-ish. It's like a halfway
Yes,
between
yes.
like a flute or some sort of wind instrument as the lead, which is really cool. It's got a really good sound to it. I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
So a little bit about this game. I see. I don't know much about it because evidently the programmer created a custom memory mapper for this particular title, and Nintendo used different memory mappers for each of their games, and so when people create the emulators, they emulate these memory mappers so that games can be played, etc., and like EverDrives have support for these particular mappers. Because the programmer of this game made a custom memory mapper for this particular game, you can only run it from a cartridge. Nobody's been able to successfully convert it into a ROM format to be played on an emulator.
I did not know that.
Yeah, so you have to go buy the game in order to actually play it. So I haven't gotten a chance to check it out, but it looks really cool from the videos
Yeah.
that I've seen. Kind of like Space War, but a little more advanced with some extra weapons and obstacles and stuff. It looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like space PvP. I think it's single screen basically.
Yeah,
And you're, I don't know.
like the old Atari, almost like Asteroids, but with two players. And
Right. Duking it out.
yeah, pretty cool stuff. Logan, what did we research in relation to this game?
We searched up facts about stars.
Stars, and you gave us some stuff that you knew off the top of your head, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you want to tell us about stars?
Well, when stars don't have enough energy left, they collapse into a black hole. And if you have a black hole in the center of our solar system, everything could be sucked in.
Exactly.
But it won't be the black hole. It will be the explosion that will wipe out all the planets.
That's true, right? Because a black hole starts after the sun explodes, and that would be a very, very hot and horrific fate for the entire solar system.
So Logan, are you telling me that I won't be able to sleep in that day when that happens?
You won't be alive that day.
Oh, so I guess I will sleep in.
You'll sleep permanently.
Because, really, you can't stay alive that long.
So
If
what
the-
about if the sun if a star is really big? Like, how long would it take for it to collapse?
If the star is really big, it could take more than 1 trillion years to collapse.
That's almost as old as your dad.
I know. I've seen so many
He's
stars
only
collapse.
40 years old.
40 trillion.
You're only 40.
So why don't you give us some facts about our star? What is our star called?
The star in our solar system is called the sun. It's
Oh,
literally just called the sun.
I see. Is it like a really big star or a really small star?
It's pretty young.
Yeah.
It's only like 4.3 billion years old.
Oh, okay. And how many years do you think it has left in it?
4.5 billion years.
Oh, so it's 4.3 billion years old, and it's got 4.5 billion years left. So I think our sun is having a midlife crisis. It's just about halfway there.
That explains the Corvette I saw.
Yeah.
It is halfway.
It's starting to date younger planets.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and every star you can see in the night sky is actually bigger than our sun. It's just bigger.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just farther away.
Yeah, the stars that are bright enough to see from Earth means that they are bigger than our sun. So you won't see anything smaller than our sun in the sky when you look at the night sky.
That's pretty cool. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
So, our sun is known as a main sequence star, which means that it's actively converting hydrogen and helium at its core, releasing lots of energy.
And most stars are main sequence stars, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so our star's
Really?
just like any other star in the galaxy, in the universe.
Yeah. And red giants have used up all their hydrogen at the core, and the hydrogen around the core ignites, causing the star to grow 100 times its size.
Can you imagine if our sun was 100 times its size?
We would be sucked in.
I think we'd be inside the sun. I think it would be a pretty hot day, not just in Florida,
Mm-hmm. I get a tan,
but
though.
in Connecticut too. You'd have a nice, crisp tan.
Like a crispy potato.
Yeah. What other types of stars are there, Logie?
White dwarfs are the next stage. They've run out of oxygen to burn and are shrinking and cooling down rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Red dwarfs are the most common kinds of stars in the universe. It's actually pretty cool.
It is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They're cooler than our sun and so energy efficient that they can burn up for 10 trillion years.
10 trillion years. That's almost older than me.
Hey!
Almost.
He doesn't like my dad jokes at all. And smaller red dwarfs could get really small, right? They're only 75 thousandths the mass of our sun.
Yep.
And they max out at about half the mass of it. So you can have a sun that's only about the size of a planet, which is pretty neat.
Neutron stars. If a star has between, not a square.
A square?
I was looking at
This
the
isn't
square.
Minecraft. You don't see a giant square hanging in the sky.
If a star has between 1.35 and 2.1 times the mass of our sun, it doesn't form a white dwarf when it dies. Instead, the star dies in a catastrophic supernova explosion,
Good reading.
and the remaining core becomes a neutron star.
It's true. What about stars that are bigger?
More massive stars can form black holes when this process occurs.
It's true. Then you get giant black holes,
Yep,
and they suck up
super giants.
all the light and all the time and all the mass.
Super giants.
Just like you with a milkshake.
Hey! They consume oxygen much quicker than regular stars due to their size and heat.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
They only last for about 1 million years, which is as old as your brain.
Oh. Yeah, supergiants are known as rebel stars because they live fast and they die young.
Oh.
Yeah.
Scientist humor.
Yeah, they're giant and they burn really bright and then they go away very quickly. And they don't tend to have a lot of planets around them because they're just so darn hot. They just have comets and stuff. So yeah, that is our star research. Did you learn a lot, Logie, when you did this?
Yes,
Yeah. Anything else you want to tell us about space that you know?
and not about stars.
And not about stars? Any other random facts you got floating around in that brain of yours?
I think you mean yes.
Okay.
What about reality TV stars? What can you tell me about them?
Off.
Oh, he just turned you off. Boom. All right, do you have any other facts for us? Any planetary facts or any fabric of space-time facts?
Hey,
What?
don't say fabric of space-time.
Why not?
It doesn't mean anything.
Oh, okay.
Fabric police are here.
I guess so.
Hey!
They've got your number, buddy.
All right, so anything else you want to talk about before we move on to our next song?
That our sun, if it doubled in mass, we'd be way out of the habitable zone, aka the Goldilocks zone.
Ah,
The Goldilocks zone.
I like that. Is
And
it, they call it the Goldilocks zone because it's just right. It's not too cold and it's not too hot.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I like that. Scientists have good sense of humor sometimes.
They can, I guess.
They just call it that.
Yeah.
It's a name.
Well, you know the story of Goldilocks, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Everyone's heard it,
Okay.
even in Japanese.
Sure.
It's a Japanese version of it, bro.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's a version of it in every language. So, thanks for being on the show with us.
Thanks, Logan.
You're welcome.
I'm glad you could hang out.
I'm glad I got to see your groove and dance moves.
We're working on another VG Embassy together, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We do some Yoshi
Ooh.
Yoshi stuff.
Yeah.
Yoshi.
Now the Crafted World is out. We're gonna
Oh, cool.
take a look at that game pretty soon. All right. So good night, Logie, and we'll
Boink.
see you next time. Bye.
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 Bye. All right. So I'm gonna go on to my next track.
I'm still here.
I know. We're pretending you left, okay?
Okay.
Okay. And for my first track for you, Ben, I have picked Level 4 from Sengoku Canon, Sengoku Ace Episode 3. And this came out on the PSP in 2005. This was composed by the Cube Corporation, made up of Yoshiaki Kobutura, Junzo Yagami, Yoshifumi Iwata, and Zenya Kuzuoka. All right, that was Level 4 from Sengoku Canon, Sengoku Ace Episode 3, came out on the PSP in 2005, composed by Yoshiaki Kobutura, Junzo Yagami, Yoshifumi Iwata, and Zenya Kuzuoka, otherwise known as Cube Corporation. I came across this track completely by random, just kind of searching through random soundtracks on YouTube, and fell upon this track completely by accident and completely fell in love with it as well. I love this track. I love the percussion. I love the sound and the richness of all of the instruments, and just the general feel of it is really, really cool. What'd you think about it, Ben?
Yeah, I thought it was, I think I was mentioning when we were listening to it, it reminds me of like a Sentai show or something where there's some, I don't know, some like episodic giant robot battle, something like flying towards victory, or like there's a fight going on in the background. I don't know, it's very evocative of a certain feeling, I think.
Yeah, and I got kind of like an Airwolf or A-Team feel too.
Yeah.
It's got a very like those shows always had those like sweeping violins with the arpeggios in the background, and I had kind of a very 80s feel, and this kind of brings a little bit of that back too. I think it just has a very heroic kind of feel. The game itself is a horizontally scrolling shoot 'em up, so you need that kind of high-paced action music to bring that kind of feel home, and I think they really succeeded on this one.
Definitely. So, about the game itself, and for this track, I was a little bit more straightforward, talking kind of about the long and tortured history of Sengoku Ace. But what caught my eye was the name Shin Nakamura, who is what I think is a fairly famous game designer, and he worked on this game. At least I thought he was fairly famous, but when I was going to look him up, there's relatively little information in like a single place. There's not really a decent biography anywhere. So I pieced this together from a bunch of different sources. He, like I said, he was a game designer, and he was responsible for Sengoku Ace, but I guess we'll get there in a second. He started at a company called Video System Company Limited, which I was seeing often called V System Company, which was founded and ran by Koji Furukawa in December 1984. They came out with a bunch of arcade games, mostly shooters, and the first one for Shin Nakamura that I could find was a game called Rabbit Punch, which is known as Rabio Lepes in Japan, and that came out in 1987.
Okay.
The company's first big shooter was a game called Turbo Force, which has like no information about it on the internet whatsoever, but I did see that it is widely considered to be the predecessor to Aero Fighters, which is known as Sonic Wings in Japan. In fact, there's a cameo from the character in Rabbit Punch in Aero Fighters 3. Aero Fighters came out in 1992, and Shin Nakamura was the main designer of the game and a number of other games for video systems. But he didn't like the company's plan to start developing for the Neo Geo because, as you mentioned, this was a vertical scrolling shooter, and he wanted to make more games like that, but it was hard to do so on the horizontal monitor that they had for the Neo Geo. So him and a group of other like-minded people left and formed a company called Psykyo, Psykyo.
Right.
And Nakamura was the founder.
I see. Okay, and they're very famous for making really good shoot 'em ups.
Exactly.
So that's probably why you heard his name before.
Right. And their first game was Sengoku Ace, which was considered to be the spiritual successor to Aero Fighters.
Interesting.
It was called Sengoku Ace Tengai Episode 1, and it was known as Samurai Aces in the English version. And like I said, it's another vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, and it came out in arcades in 1993. So, for about a decade, Psykyo developed mostly vertical scrolling shoot 'em ups, and then they kind of branched out into erotic mahjong games.
As one does.
As one does in turn of the century Japanese small game devs, I guess. In the middle of 2002, they merged with a company called Crossnots, which is spelled X-Knots. But I guess like this is where it starts to get a little bit more hazy because merger is sort of conflicting. I saw that Psykyo more or less collapsed around 2001, and some members went on to form Crossnots, but then it's unclear exactly how it came to be. And then to make matters a little bit more confusing, there's a magazine called Arcadia Magazine, which is focusing on arcade games, and they had a section called Maker's Comments that let game devs kind of write a short blurb. And there was a publicity statement about the merger in a 2003 issue, but then Psykyo revealed that it had closed its video game operations. And then the month after that, Crossnots came out with their own statement in the magazine saying that no, that was erroneous. And the quote that they put said, there have been some erroneous reports regarding Psykyo's divisions in some media. We hope to continue producing and releasing quality products under the Psykyo brand and its divisions.
Interesting.
We hope for your continual patronage in the future as well. Blah, blah, blah. And ultimately what that meant was they were going to keep putting out games under the Psykyo label, but they were all outsourced to just random teams and devs.
It's a different team.
So it was basically the death of them.
Yeah, so for all intents and purposes, the original communique was correct for the most part, and then they're just kind of like, no, we're just gonna fake it.
Yes, exactly. It's like, we're not gonna be making games anymore. And you're like, well, yeah, you're not, but It's going to look like you are.
Yeah. That's kind of lame. I mean, just fronting the brand just to get people to buy the games.
Yeah.
Because they had a very good reputation for being, top-notch shoot 'em ups.
Right, exactly. And that's why I'm assuming that's why they wanted to retract that initial commentary. But then, 2 years after that, in 2005, Crossnots released the Sengoku Ace label for the new PSP game, Sengoku Canon, which was not well received from what I saw, and specifically the visuals were knocked really badly, which is a high point in the earlier series. And in fact, one thing that I thought was kind of interesting is that I read in an interview that the team for Turbo Force spent an entire month just drawing one boss back in the earlier days. So,
Wow.
I found it to be a marked departure from their early days. But it has a bunch of returning characters, and I guess it's the culmination of a series of companies and game franchises into an all-time low point before disappearing entirely.
That's a shame. That's really a shame.
Yeah, and I haven't found anything else about Shin Nakamura, and I tried to find out kind of what happened with these companies, and it kind of ran into a bit of a wall, but it just kind of puttered out, and here we are.
Yeah, also ironic that Nakamura, left the company and started his own in order to specifically make vertical shooters.
Right.
And then they end up on the PSP making a horizontal shooter that's not well received.
Right.
It's a little ironic there.
Yeah. Should have stuck with erotic mahjong games.
Yeah, but fortunately, the soundtrack to this game is really good. This is just one of a whole bunch of excellent tracks from that soundtrack.
Yeah.
So I guess it's at least worth searching out the music from this game and taking a listen to that if you don't want to play the game itself.
Yeah. And that's all I got for this one.
Cool. Yeah, I had no idea the history behind Psycho. I knew about them, but wasn't aware of their kind of rise and fall. So that was really cool to know about. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Anything else you'd like to discuss before we move on to our next track?
Actually, you know what? I do. I wanted to go back and mention something that I forgot to say in the last track we were talking about. The composer of Star Versus is the guy Luke Silas, and on his Bandcamp, he mentions only one inspiration. It says something like, "All I want to do is be Norin Rad," and so I thought that was a cool shout out to Matt. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that in case he's out there listening.
Yeah, Norin Rad's an amazing composer. Shakedown Hawaii is coming out very shortly with a whole slew of new
I'm looking
tracks
forward to
written
that.
by him. Yeah. So, and I think he's going to be on XVGM Radio pretty soon too. They're going to have another interview with him specifically about Shakedown Hawaii. So I'm looking forward to listening to that.
Oh, cool! I'll have to check that out for sure.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's move on to your next track. What do you got for me, sir?
Okay, so I believe we're going to the X68000 for this one. It is from a game called Butasan Quest, composed by Unknown. This track is called Clay.
Actually, it's by Karu-chan. I did find the composer.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, by Karu-chan, this track is still called Clay.
And it's a fantastic track. We'll be right back.
All right, that was, I guess it's not Clay. Ed, what was the title that you found, by the way?
Yeah, it's called Clay on the YouTube video that you found it on, but there's a sound test in the game, and when you play the song on the sound test, it's called Field 3.
And since you're filling in my shortcomings, what was the composer that you found again?
The composer is listed as Karu-chan.
That's right. Okay, Karu-chan.
K-A-R-U.
Well, the game, I can tell you, is Butasan Quest, and it was from the X68000 in 1994.
Correct.
What did you think of the track?
This is a great track. Yeah, I love this track. It has a fantastic bass groove to it. Mm-hmm. It's got a really nice instrument set. It just feels very professionally done, and it's what I love about the sound hardware in the Sharp-X 68000 is with the right sound driver and some really good instrument programming, you can get music that sounds like it belongs more on the radio than it does out of, a video game system.
Right.
And this is a great example of that.
Yeah, real talented.
Why'd you pick this one? Or how did you find this one, actually? This is pretty obscure.
I'm trying to think about where I originally heard it. Probably on YouTube. I have a big master list of YouTube tracks that is like 200,000 songs. Just pulls from a bunch of different people who put video game music on YouTube, and it shuffles them all together. And I'm pretty sure this was from Axel Joe, or Axel Joe. I can't remember what his.
Yeah, ACCEL.
Yeah. He's got a bunch of great Japanese PC game music. So I think this was something that was just in his mix and caught my ear because it's got that dyad style sweet groove in that I love. So it was
we agree on that one.
Yeah, an instant favorite for me, and I've been sitting on it for a while. Haven't put it. So this is a treat to be able to trot out for the VGM fans.
Yeah, so, I tried to look up as much as I could with this game, but being that it's a Dojin game from the mid-90s, information is pretty scarce. So as I do with many things Japanese, I took to the interwebs and talked to my friend Brian Mosley over at Pixelated Audio and Impulse Project because he is a student of the Japanese language, and so he did a little deeper digging for me in places that I couldn't necessarily go. So Butasan, aside from being a Japanese Dojin RPG, is also the brand name of a German anti-inflammatory medicine. Just a quick fact for you. So if you're feeling a little inflamed, go to Germany and take some Butasan. It'll probably help you out. I guess it's the equivalent of Advil or something like that. But the game itself was created by high school students. So, we're talking about 15, 16-year-olds composing this music and creating this game.
See, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's only about 20 minutes long, though. So I guess it was released in 94, and it was developed by a group of high school students who call themselves the Tihihi Net Project and C Club Betsu Dotai. Which I don't know the translation of, but that's what they go by. In 2005, they actually started making a Butasan Quest 2, but it never came out. They showed it off at Comiket 52, which was kind of like a Japanese demo scene show. They had it about 50% done at that point, but nobody has seen or heard from it since. But the game itself was pretty neat. It plays a lot like a really basic kind of a Dragon Quest style. It's like an overhead RPG. You can move up, down, left, right. It doesn't very, very simple movement on a grid-based screen. You run into very simple, like hand-drawn enemies once in a while, and you basically just keep pushing the button to attack. Like there were menus to go through, but they were all in Japanese, so I just kind of figured that the top option was to strike an enemy, the second option was to try to run away, the third option was to do magic or heal or, items and stuff. The fact that it was so easy to figure out without knowing the language is kind of a testament to how basic the game actually was. And also the fact that the game could be finished in about 20 minutes, I'm surprised it has as much notoriety and information out there as it does, because it's a really small. There's like, you move from one town to the second town.
Right.
There's a couple of enemies, and you beat them, and you're pretty much done. And there's a little text sequence, and then ta-da! You've beaten Buddha-san Quest.
Maybe the music carried it.
Yeah, there's a lot of music in the game. There's actually more music in the game than it takes time to beat the game. So, I didn't know there was a sound test. I just kind of found the sound test by like just picking through the different Japanese options, and really happened to like come across it completely accidentally, which thank God made it easy to get this music for the show. But yeah, there is a lot of different selections for different fields, for different like cutscenes and stuff. So I don't know if all the music that's in the sound test actually appears in the game itself. Maybe it seems like they were trying to create a much bigger game than they actually ended up doing, and so the composer went a little buck wild with his composition there, and went a little overboard on the musical selections. But as a music disc, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
All the tracks in this game are really good.
This is basically the group project where everyone else on your team is an idiot. He's like, the composer was like, guys, I've got 50 tracks. We're gonna get a C- in accounting if you don't hand in your assignments.
Karo-chan gets the A+, everyone else gets a C.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But the fact that they wanted to make a second one means they at least probably had some fun making this one, which, in the end, that's all that really matters when you're putting out Dojin stuff, because you're not really getting paid for it. So.
Right. Yeah.
Just a shame it never got done. 50% done means there's probably only about 10 minutes worth of gameplay. So.
Right. Could be worse. It could be Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden 2, and they could actually be charging for the game that's never coming out.
Yeah, I think you were complaining about that on the first Diet Challenge, and that was about a year ago, so
That's
it's a
right.
shame.
That's right. And I'll bring it up again in Diet Challenge 3.
That's okay, because I still have given the guys from Paprium my money, and I don't know if I'll ever see that one either, so we're both in the same boat with that.
That's all right.
But, at least this one actually did come out, so
There you go.
we can play it on our barely functioning X68000 emulators and have a great time.
So what do you got next? Unless you have something else to say.
No, I'm good. That's more information from Buddha-san Quest than I thought I would have for you. But I'm glad that I was able to, at least with Brian's help, dig out a couple of things from the Japanese corner of the web.
Mm-hmm.
Next song I got on my list is a song called Blackguard Keep from a game called Brawlhalla. This came out on PS4, Switch, Xbox One, Windows, and Mac in 2015, and it was composed by Chris Rickwood. right, that was Blackguard Keep from Brawlhalla. That came out on the PS4, the Switch, Xbox One, Windows, and Mac in 2015. Composed by Mr. Chris Rickwood. I really, really enjoy this track. I feel like, and as I was telling you while we were listening to it, it's kind of like if Baroque or chamber music existed in the 1970s, it was kind of like disco for Baroque.
Yeah.
Disco for Baroque.
It was great.
Yeah, I really like the harpsichord along with the nice 70s bass line. I'm not sure why that doesn't happen more, because for some reason those two instruments together just sound really, really good to me.
Yeah.
And it's not done very often.
You got your chocolate in my peanut butter, and it's unexpectedly delicious. Yeah, I really liked it. I thought that took me by surprise, but I think the sound really works well together. It was clever. Clearly not something you see a whole lot of. And I will say that I mentioned when we were listening to it, at the very beginning, it reminded me a bit of the Warcraft 2 Tides of Darkness song. I can't remember which song it is, but there's a lot of the harpsichord and some other stuff going on in that. And I have very positive associations with that soundtrack. So I was on board from jump, and then started getting to the boogie down bass, and I was like, oh yeah, we're going places.
Yeah, I'll have to check that track out now. I want to see where the similarities are. But I have this game on Steam, and I've played it a little bit. This was one of those games where it's very similar to like Smash Brothers. It's like a one-on-one or multiple teams on teams fighting game. And once Smash Ultimate came out, I kind of just completely forgot about it and started playing that instead. So I didn't get too much experience with it. But from what I remember, it was pretty decent.
Yeah, it looked fun. I watched some short clips of the game when I was just trying to get a sense of what it was about, and it seemed like pretty decent, well put together.
Yeah, the fact that it's on so many platforms, I think makes it a little more accessible for people. You know, you don't necessarily have to go out and get a Switch.
Right.
I'm not sure if there's cross-platform, but the fact that it's on, Windows and PS4 and Xbox One means you have a much larger install base than the Switch does.
Right.
Although that's shrinking by the day, it seems, with the way the Switch has been selling.
Yeah. The Switch is my church. I pray to the altar of Switch. So as far as what I pulled from this track is Brawlhalla is obviously a not even veiled reference to Norse mythology and Valhalla. So I went a little bit into the history about what Valhalla is.
Oh, nice.
So in its most basic form, it is the hall where the god Odin houses the dead whom he deems worthy of dwelling with him. The name translates to something sort of like Hall of the Slain or Hall of the Slain Warriors. And the warriors who stay there are called the Einherjar, which is, or I guess it's Einherjar. Einherjar. And it literally translates to those who fight alone in Old Norse.
Interesting.
Yeah, so the Einherjar are the spirits of deceased elite warriors, and like noble Viking warriors wanted to be them after they died. And, apart from the honor of being on MTV Real World Undead Norse Edition, living Vikings wanted to, they were envious of the Einherjar lifestyle because it's like the ultimate goal, because there is a stanza from a ancient poem called like the Poetic Eddas. The Poetic Eddas were a oral literature of Iceland that were finally written down in around 1000 to 1300 CE, and the Eddas are a primary source of our knowledge of ancient Norse pagan beliefs. So, the most well-known translation, from what I can tell, is by Henry Adams Bellows, and there's an excerpt of the third poem in the Poetic Edda called it's a tough one. It's Vafhrithnismal. The Ballad of Vafthrun here. And I won't spell it, but just smash on the V, T, and H letters of your laptop and you'll get there. So nearly the whole poem is just like a conversation between Odin and his wife Frigg, and Odin and the giant Vafthrunthir. Vafthrûdnir.
God bless you.
And basically, Odin's wife is saying, Odin, don't go see the giant. The giant is renowned for his wisdom, so Odin goes and sees him anyway. And the giant is asking a series of riddles and questions. And then Odin asks the giant's questions, and they kind of have like a back and forth. And then eventually, Odin asks the giant a question that demonstrates that he is truly Odin, and the giant taps out and admits defeat. The only other reason that the poem is interesting is that it functions sort of like an encyclopedia for people at that time, with like a slight narrative in it. And the poem itself, there's one part that I wanted to read that says, "The heroes all in Othin's hall each day to fight go forth. They fell each other and fare from the fight, all healed full soon to sit." Which means that you have unlimited respawns. So all day you fight one another, you do valorous deeds along the way, and then every evening all their wounds are healed and they're back to full health. So that is why the Vikings wanted to do this.
Okay, so if you're a really good warrior and you spend your entire life training and do all these good things,
Right.
and you die in battle, basically they're saying you could just play Fortnite for the rest of eternity.
Exactly. IRL Fortnite.
I can imagine that would be cool for a lot of people. Yeah.
So there's some preservation problems with these stanzas in the poem, because I read a bunch about why it happened, but it's not super interesting. It's just kind of like someone had a copying error and they've sort of parsed it out on what they think is the right way, and they're now pretty confident that this is what it is. But the only other thing I wanted to say is that it's not all fun and games for the Einherjar, because they haven't just been picked just because they're valorous and have done these great things, but they're carefully selected by Odin because their true purpose is to fight alongside him at Ragnarok, which is the final battle between the gods and the giants. And Odin is fated to fight the wolf Fenrir. So the only other thing I wanted to say is that if you were listening carefully to what I was saying, you might wonder why the Einherjar are called those who fight alone if they're actually intended to take part in this huge battle to bring about the cataclysmic destruction of the cosmos and everything in it. There's a philologist, which I looked up what that word meant, but it's like someone who studies historical writings, maybe like literature, historical literature, something like that. So this philologist, Rudolf Simek, thinks that the name might have been derived from an older root, which means those who belong to an army, which makes more sense. Oh, you know what? I have it in my notes what philology is. It's the study of language in oral and written history sources.
Okay.
And it is the intersection between textual criticism, literary criticism, history, and linguistics.
That sounds like an amazing job.
There you go.
Should have been one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you were named Phil, you could just be an olologist.
Ooh,
It's a shortcut.
or you can study yourself.
Yeah.
You could be a philologist.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
The thing about Valhalla and all that Norse mythology is that when I was a kid, nobody really knew anything about it. Now that all these Marvel movies are becoming really popular, there's
Right.
literally a movie called Thor Ragnarok. So people are getting these very comic booky action watered down versions of Norse mythology that's like kind of accurate, but it's kind of like the Michael Bay version of Norse mythology.
Right.
So I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of people that are only about 25% accurate when they're recounting this history to other people in the future.
Well, they need to go back and read these epic poems.
Yeah. And sometimes the real thing is much more entertaining than the movies that you see on the screen anyway.
Yeah, go get your Eddas, folks. Your poetic Eddas.
Become a philologist or find a guy named Phil and study him.
Right.
And then you will know all about Valhalla.
Or study a philologist named Phil, and you could be philologistologist.
A philologistologist.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. The more syllables you have in your your job name, the more you get paid.
Ah, that's why I don't get paid very much.
Yeah. I mean, IT, I only have 2 letters, so
Yeah.
that should explain a lot.
Yeah, I gotta expand on that.
All right, man. That was cool. I'm kind of glad you went in that direction because I kind of figured that you might with the name of that game. So
Yeah, I thought it would be fun to kind of learn a little bit about for myself, and it was like such a easy connection for me to draw. I just ran with it.
cool. All right. So what do you have for your next track tonight?
Next up, it is from the game Spark the Electric Jester. It is a PC game that came out in 2017, and the composers for the soundtrack is various artists, Funk Fiction, James Landino, Pejman Rusbe, Paul Bethers, Michael Staple, Andy Tunstall, and Falk Aw Jung. But this track I know specifically is by Funk Fiction, who is Pejman Rusbe, and it is track titled Sunset Heights, aka Stage 6.
All right. We'll be right back.
All right, that was from the game Spark the Electric Jester, Sunset Heights, Stage 6, composed by Funk Fiction. What did you think, Ed?
Oh man, this track, the first thing that I noticed is just the mastering, just the that wide stereo feel and those synths that lead the track right off feels so enveloping. Like if you're in headphones, it just like wraps around your entire skull and it feels like an audio blanket. It's so cool.
Yeah.
And the song's just got this nice like warm feel, relaxing, but at the same time it's got kind of a get up and go. There's like two conflicting feelings in this track that still work really, really well together, and it's kind of like, and Logan has used this in past shows, but calm and exciting at the same time.
Calm and exciting.
This really kind of fits that at the same time. It's interesting.
Yeah. I agree. I think I see where you're coming from. The mastering I didn't notice until you said something, and then once you said it, I was like, oh yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, really good production.
I think Funk Fiction may also be the artist for my other favorite track from this game, which is the Smog City Sewers stage. So all you sitting at a computer, go look that up, because that's another super good jam. It's got a really underrated soundtrack, so I've been trying to champion it to people who will listen.
Cool. I listened to a bunch of different tracks from this game, and Funk Fictions just seemed to be the ones that I really gelled with the most, just because they all kind of sound very similar to this. And I know you've played a couple, or at least one of them on Dyad Presents as well.
Right.
So
Yeah.
definitely worthy of taking a listen to. And the game seems pretty cool too. It's kind of in the vein of Sonic, maybe a little bit of Ristar in there. It's kind of like a side-scrolling Sega-style game, I guess is the best way to explain it.
Right. Yeah. For those of you not familiar, I can't remember his name, but it is the project of a single dev. He's a Brazilian dude who did some unofficial homebrew Sonic, like sort of sequels. I can't remember the names of them, but I think that he made 3, and then this was his first, public facing effort where he was going to sell it. So obviously he couldn't just rip off Sonic, and it's a very similar feel, but he had a Kickstarter just to raise money for the soundtrack. And I think it was like $12,000, and he's just like, all right, get the music, I do the rest, let's go.
That's
so
cool.
I think it's very cool.
Worth it for the soundtrack, that's for sure.
Yeah. What do you got for the rest of it?
So I took a look at the game, and I was going to do a little research on the game and stuff, and I decided to go in a different direction. So I decided that I wanted to find the most interesting jester in the world. Well, actually, I originally started off looking up the history of jesters and, where they came from and how they ended up becoming a thing and part of modern culture. And then I hit upon the Wikipedia page for this particular jester and fell in love with his story. And so I did, some tangential research on him, and this is just really cool. It's going to be a long one, so strap in, but I hopefully will be an enjoyable little diatribe I'm going to go on here.
A dyad tribe, if you will?
A dyad tribe. So this is the story of Sir Geoffrey Hudson, and he lived from 1619 to 1682. He was considered a court dwarf of the English Queen Henrietta Maria of France, who was the wife of King Charles I. He didn't actually suffer from dwarfism, though, because he was really, really small, but he was proportioned like a normal person. So it's theorized he had a growth hormone deficiency and wasn't necessarily genetically, he didn't have dwarfism. He was gifted to the Queen on his 7th birthday, where he rose out of a giant pie wearing a tiny suit of armor, being only 18 inches tall. And the Queen kept him as a curiosity, along with 2 traditional dwarves, a man with gigantism, and a monkey named Pug.
Oh.
And it gets better from here.
18 inches is
18
7
inches.
years old.
Yeah.
It's incredibly small.
And able to walk, and had normal intelligence, so there wasn't anything. He didn't have any deficiencies in terms of physical or mental capabilities, which made him even more of a curiosity.
Yeah.
But he was, like I said, he was really smart and witty, so the Queen took a shining to him and had him educated and trained in the ways of royalty. So he learned to read, he learned to ride horseback, he learned to shoot a pistol, but he was also entertainment for guests and the Queen herself, so he would sing songs and tell jokes. Many of the jokes involved digs at famous or influential people, all taken in good faith as a friendly roast. So he had a good sense of wit and sarcasm about him as well. Around 1642, during the English Civil War, the Queen had to pack up her court and flee to France, and so she took Hudson along with her. She made him a horse captain, and history's a little bit fuzzy here, but it seems as though he actually led troops on the battlefield, this 18-inch tall gentleman.
Nice.
Leading people into battle. Once the war was over, Hudson was done being a jester. He saw battle. Obviously that does things to a person. He was older and warier. He felt he didn't owe anyone his entertainment anymore. So this one dude who was the brother of William Croft, who was a baron to Charles II, he just didn't like Geoffrey Hudson at all. He was a real jerk to him. It's not known what the offense was, but it was bad enough that Hudson ended up challenging him to a duel. So Croft shows up to the duel with a 17th century equivalent of a squirt gun. And Hudson gets so mad that he shoots the guy in the forehead with a real gun. So basically the guy shows up and like starts making fun of him, and he's just like, boom. So he's sentenced to death for this, but the queen takes pity on him since she basically raised him, and instead just exiles him back to England. It's like, just get out of here, you know, you should be killed for this, but you've done me a lot of good service. Get on this boat, go back to England, just get out of here. So he was about 25 years old at this point.
I thought it was going to be like 67.
No, man, this is 25 years old. He's on his way back, exiled to England. The ship he's on gets captured by Barbary pirates.
Oh.
He spends the next 25 years of his life as a slave in either Algeria or Tunisia, and wasn't rescued until the 1660s by English forces. There he lived in the English countryside, and he returned to London in 1676 to ask money from the court, having been a member of it before the war. So he was poor. He found out that if you were a member of the court before the Civil War, you can go and ask for a tithing, and they would give you some money to live on because of your service previously. Little did he know there was a huge anti-Catholic movement going on in London at the time, and he was a Catholic. It was really similar to the Salem witch trials in the USA, and Hudson ended up spending 4 more years in prison for the crime of being Catholic. He was released in 1680 and lived in poverty for 2 years until his unremarkable death in 1682 at the age of 63. So that is the life story of Jeffrey Hudson.
Poor Jeff.
I know. I mean, it seems like he had a really, really interesting life up until he was like 25. And
shouldn't have shot that guy. Let that be a lesson to you.
There was kind of a side note when he was spending 25 years of his life in Algeria or Tunisia as a slave. When they finally rescued him, he'd grown like 4 extra feet. So like he was almost to that of a normal sized human being at that point. And having this wit about him, they asked him why, you know, how did he grow? Like, what was the, you know, does he know why it happened? He said it was all the buggery, which in layman's terms kind of means butt stuff. So he was not treated very well as he was a slave. Scientists do think that because his diet was different there, that it basically, whatever his diet was, stimulated his growth hormone, whatever deficiency he had. And so he was able to grow.
So he was eating better as a slave than as
eating better
in the court.
Yeah, maybe not better, but just different, you know? Just better, different vitamins, different minerals, whatever. But yeah, really, really interesting story for this guy.
We need Lin-Manuel Miranda to write a musical about this guy.
That would be amazing. I would definitely pay $300 for a ticket for that. We'll just call it Hudson.
Yeah,
you got
Hudson.
Hamilton, and you just got Hudson.
Mm-hmm. Both have stuff with duels, you know?
A tiny person wearing a suit of armor jumping out of a pie.
I think you could do wonders with that.
Riding a horse into battle. I mean, there are so many songs built into this that you can easily, you know, relationship with Queen Henrietta Maria, 2 different kings.
Right. Perfect.
This is good stuff.
Let's start the change.org petition tonight.
Let's do it.
We got 2 signatures.
Let's do it. He's much more interesting than Spark the Electric Jester, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you have? What do you have for your next track then?
All right. So next up, we're gonna keep it funky. I really enjoyed the funk of Sunset Heights, so let's move on to a track called Hidden Level, and the game is called Salaryman Escape. This came out on the PS4 and PC in 2018. Unfortunately, by an unknown artist, but it's a great track. So let's take a listen. We'll be right back.
Con
And we are back. That was Hidden Level from Salaryman Escape. That came out on the PS4 and PC in 2018 by an unknown artist. And this is more of like a VR game from whatever. I think it has it's mostly a VR mode. You can play it without VR, but
right.
You can also put the headset on. I love this track. I was into it already with that funk disco groove.
Yeah.
And then the vocals, even though I have no idea what they mean, they just sound so good. They're so kind of rhythmic and percussive and go along with the song so well. It's almost like listening to a different instrument just made by a human voice, even without understanding it.
Yeah. Yeah, the vocalists do an awesome job.
What was your first thought when you heard this song?
It was not at all what I was expecting from a game that is talking about Salaryman.
Yeah.
But it was great. Like, it's just like real toe tapping, funky. Like, I think the way I would describe the horns is blasty ass in a great way.
I can definitely
the best way.
See that for sure.
And I love me some blasty ass horns. So, yeah, I was fully on board. I think this is accidentally like the most cohesive show as for music that we've done with the...
You're right.
I mean, there are some oddities, but like we've hit in a real funky grooving vibe tonight.
I think we're definitely converging on the tastes that we have in common when it comes to VGM. I think we both have that kind of funk affinity in common, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm fine with that. I could do that all day.
Yeah. I actually did a lot of research of my own, just trying to find out the composer, because I couldn't figure it out. Even the developer's Twitter, somebody had asked about the soundtrack, and all the developer responded was something to the effect of, we contracted with many talented artists for our soundtrack, and still wouldn't even give out the names of anyone.
That's garbage. That's a garbage response.
Yeah, I was a little upset about that, but yeah. So I don't want to go too much into the game because I don't know where your research topic you ended up on. So what have you got for me for this one?
Well, so what I learned about Salaryman Escape is it's inspired by the board game Jenga. So I went whole hog into the history of Jenga.
Nice.
So for those of you who don't know, it is a game that has like a stackable square wooden pegs that you stack up, and you sort of push and prod and slowly remove them without knocking over the stack, and if you knock over the stack, you lose.
Logan would correct you and say they are rectangular prisms.
Okay, rectangular prisms. Yeah, so you just need to get him to record that so you can interject the him correcting me.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was designed by a British woman named Leslie Scott. She was born in Tanzania and raised in East and West Africa. And in fact, the name Jenga is derived from kujenga, which is a Swahili word which means to build. And I don't want to get too more on this, but her husband is an Oxford zoologist, Professor Fitz Walrath. So I just thought that was like an amazing little sentence. Oxford zoologist, Professor Fritz Walrath. So that is like, I guess, as British as you can get, maybe? I'm not sure.
I think that sentence hits every single combination of syllables in the English language. Yeah, it's very fun to say.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy zoologist, Professor Fritz Walrath.
Exactly.
So Jenga grew out of a childhood game that she played using wooden building blocks that they got from a local wood craftsman in Ghana. And she brought the game to England in the 80s, and it was promoted in the United States by Poconobe Associates, which is a US-based partnership through Hasbro. One of the partners at Poconobe is a guy named Robert Grebler, who was a champion Jenga player, and according to Hasbro, still holds the record of 40 2/3 levels. And for reference, Jenga only has 54 blocks stacked to begin with, so he was like basically almost as tall as you can possibly get without knocking it down.
Wow.
I can't even imagine what that looks like exactly, but I guess it's single pegs almost all the way up.
Yeah.
So There are dozens of different versions of the game. Some have different gameplay, like colored dice to increase the difficulty, and it's super popular in Japan, where there's a bunch of different cosmetic versions, like Kit Kat Jenga that has a chocolate egg in it, a Kit Kat bar that was like marketed to workers for their break time enjoyment, and a bright pink Hello Kitty Jenga game. And I would consider the variants to be mostly fun and harmless, but after looking at the Hasbro website to try and find some more information, I was horrified to find something called Angry Birds Star Wars Jenga Death Star.
Oh, God.
So it's just like,
of course.
Which I said that in my notes, I literally wrote, which I think is what Fonzie yelled as he was jumping the shark.
Yeah,
So-
I've been to bars where they have like life-size Jenga games.
Yeah.
And that looks really fun. I've never participated, but I would like to someday. That just seems like a really cool thing.
It's good. Well, I'll tell you what. It's good unless you are the person next to those people, because in some variants, I don't know if it says for everything, the only thing you can yell to say to somebody else when they're playing Jenga to distract them is Jenga. So if you just have, like, I've had experiences where a woman next to me is just like screaming wine mist into my face, just screaming, shrieking the word Jenga, trying to get her opponents to like fumble, and it's just like, oh,
Delicious.
this is not pleasant. I should not have come on life-size Jenga night.
You're like, trying to get sleep that night, and you're just like woken up at 3 a.m.
Exactly. Jenga. So one last thing of note on Jenga is MIT is building a robot that plays Jenga, which on its face isn't that interesting, but it actually represents a new frontier because it's a combination of AI and physical skill. So AI can already play games that require logic like chess and Go, and they are essentially better than humans. The most notable examples of world champion players losing to robots is Deep Blue versus Garry Kasparov, which
Right.
is he was a chess grandmaster. In 1997, the computer won. Garry Kasparov was a Russian former world chess champion, and most people consider him to be the greatest chess player of all time. From 1986 until his retirement in 2005, he was ranked number 1 in the world, and for 225 out of 228 months. He had a peak rating, his ELO, of 2851, which he got in 1999, and that was right around the time he played Deep Blue. Actually, they played a pair of 6-game chess matches with Deep Blue in 1996, and Kasparov won, but then the second was played in New York City in 1997, and that one had an updated version of the computer, which beat him 3.5 games to 2.5 games. And it was even after the first 5 games, but then Kasparov blew it and lost really quickly in Game 6, which was notable because it was the first defeat of a reigning world chess champion by a computer in tournament conditions.
Wow.
The other notable AI kicking butt of human was in Go. I guess it's not exactly like Othello, but it's the black and white board game with the black and white stones. And there's a computer called AlphaGo, which played against Lee Sedol in South Korea in 2016. He was a professional Go player of 9th Dan rank, which is the highest rank. And as of February 2016, he was ranked 2nd in international titles, like the amount of titles that he's won, and he's only 36. He won 1 out of 5 games against the computer, but he later said that Lee Sedol, lost, but mankind did not. So Jenga is different because, according to one of the guys on MIT who's working on this project, you need to physically interact with it to get enough information to make a decision, and you can't just look at it. And as far as where they are progress-wise, he said basically it's good enough that he could play against a human and it would be fun, but slow. And researchers say that an expert could still beat it. So we need to go dig up the dude from Hasbro and have him throw down in our next computer versus human battle.
Yeah, seriously. I also feel like a robot would have advantages that humans don't necessarily have, because a robot playing chess is just moving a piece from, a space to a space. And it's almost all thinking. But with Jenga, You're talking about having a steady hand. You're talking about grabbing a block in the right place. You're talking
Right.
about
Yeah.
a lot of these factors that machines are much, much better at doing than humans are.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the challenges they're facing. And I think the computers versus people, the AI chess and Go matches are not like the computer doesn't physically do anything. It's just outputting moves.
Right.
So
yeah.
this is like, this is the next way that the robots are going to come and take us over.
Hooray! They start with the games and they end with Skynet,
Right. Exactly.
and we all die.
We had a good run.
Man, you know,
Besides, I learned that the sun is going to just blow us all up pretty soon anyway, so,
midlife crisis.
Right.
Within my next 40 trillion years or something.
Whoa, we're halfway there. Whoa, we're living on a prayer.
We'll make it, I swear. I promise.
I don't know why I didn't expect that, but you caught me off guard.
All right, we got a couple more tracks left, I think. Yes. Who's up? Next is you, right? Yeah. So what you got for your last track?
Oh, yeah, okay, so we got my last pick here tonight, right?
Yes, indeed.
So, this one comes from the game Kickoff. It's an arcade game that debuted in 1988. It's composed by Tsukasa Tawada, and this track is called Sunset Seaside.
All right.
All right, that was the track Sunset Seaside, composed by Tsukasa Tawada from the game Kickoff from arcades in 1988. Are you sufficiently relaxed?
I feel like if I were trying to select my team before a soccer match to this music, I would not be prepared for that soccer match at all.
No, you'd be relaxing on the shore, sipping a nice pina colada,
Yeah.
put your feet up.
I feel like I'd get out onto the field or the pitch or whatever they call it in soccer games, and I would just be like, "Hey, man, do you wanna get the ball in that net? Go right ahead, dude. I'm just feeling really generous today.
Yeah. What is it? It doesn't even matter.
Why are we competing, man? What is
Right.
competition? We should all just love each other. That's what this song makes me feel like.
Right. Yeah. There's no I in competition or win. Just let it go.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I'm not very good at spelling.
The W in win stands for why are we doing this?
Exactly. Just getting kind of. It started apathetic, and now it's just getting sort of like depression kind of in there.
I do like the fact that this track is using the same sound hardware as the Budasan Quest. Even though it's an arcade game, it still uses that YM2151 and the
Yeah, it doesn't. They
sampler.
don't sound like. I mean, I guess there was a few years in between the two of them, but it just does not sound like it's coming from the same hardware to me.
That's the magic of FM.
Yeah.
You can do a whole lot with it.
Yeah, and just shows you how in the right hands you can get just such a different. Like, I don't think either of them is bad or anything, but there's definitely different.
Exactly.
While I was listening to this, I mentioned every time I hear the song, I just think of the song "A Summer Place," aka "Young Love Scene" by Elmer Bernstein. And wherever you are, if you look it up, you will have heard this song before. It's like the classic. I don't know. It's in a million commercials, and that is all. Like, I can't. They're inextricably linked now in my brain. That's all I can think about when I hear it.
I think I know which track you're talking about. It's like in a lot of jewelry commercials.
Yeah, probably. That sounds like something that would happen. I would sing it, but I mean, there's no words. It's just
Just a melody.
Yeah, I think of something like real like Leave It to Beavery 1950s. I don't know. You'd know it if you heard it.
All right, we'll have to link it in the show notes. That'd be fun to kind of compare and contrast the two. So you want to hear a little story?
I'd love to.
It's a soccer story.
Oh,
Do you still want to hear it?
less so, but I'm still here.
This is a story about the 1988 World Cup. And it's a story of one Werner Fricker, who over the course of 15 months, from July 4th, 1987 to July 4th, 1988, campaigned the FIFA Council to hold the World Cup in the United States in 1994. And he did so at the point where the US hadn't even qualified for a World Cup since 1950. But they were building up a strong team, and it looked like they'd make it to the 1990 World Cup in Italy. And a big catalyst for this campaign was the 1984 Summer Olympics, which had been held in California, with the soccer tournament being held at the Rose Bowl. And over 100,000 people attended the final game. And FIFA officials noticed the interest that Americans suddenly seemed to have in the sport. Of course, not everyone was happy with the decision to have the games in the States, as Morocco and Brazil, both huge soccer, or football as they call it over there, countries, they wanted the World Cup too in 1994. So one Brazilian official commented that taking the World Cup to the United States would be like taking the World Series to Brazil. I mean, it makes a lot of sense because soccer wasn't really considered an American sport at all at that point. And
Brazil's never been in the World Series.
it's true. It's true. And the United States had not been in the World Cup since 1950, so it was kind of the same thing. So in order to win the bid, the United States put together a 381-page book outlining how they would handle the tournament, and they listed 18 venues that could be used for play. Of those venues, 5 of them were chosen: RFK Stadium in Washington, D.C., Soldier Field in Chicago, the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, California, and the Citrus Bowl in Orlando, Florida. And they decided to give the World Cup to the United States, and it ended up being one of the most successful cups in history, drawing 3.6 million fans and generating $210 million in ticket sales. And because of this success, the U.S. created the MLS, Major League Soccer, a 26-club sports league that draws hundreds of thousands of fans each year.
I didn't realize that was the catalyst for them making the MLS. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's interesting because, I mean, I know a lot of people that are really into soccer, but it never seems to have, like, the same fervor that baseball or football does. I mean, there's a bar that's not too far from me that's like a soccer bar. Like, they have gatherings when whatever teams they root for are playing, and when the World Cup is on, like, you can't even get within 100 yards of that bar without having to run into 80,000 soccer players, like, drunk and hanging out on the street. So, like, you don't see it on TV, you don't, like, hear people talking about it at work, but I guess the fandom is there and strong enough that the sport does have some sort of presence.
Yeah, I think so. My wife is a super huge soccer fan, so I have like seen a few soccer games and stuff, and I think this story is sort of emblematic of how Americans view soccer. The women's national team is, like, generally one of the best in the world for Americans soccer. Like, they're just as much as the men's team in America sucks, the women are the complete opposite. They're almost always at the top or, amongst the top. And they were having some sort of exhibition, I don't know what the term is, friendly or something, for the women's national team right just down the street from our house at a high school. And it was free. And we went, we walked, we sat in the first row and watched, the best women's soccer team in the world play for free. And I that's kind of mind-boggling.
Wow.
If that was the case in, Brazil or what was the other country? Italy you mentioned. I think that there would probably be
Morocco. Yeah.
There would be people getting murdered. I guess maybe it's because it's women's sports and people aren't hold it the same standard. But
It's true.
even so, I mean, it's just people just don't seem to really care about it that much. To me, it's the same as any other sport. The intricacies and you are interested in it or not. It's not, it's not really different. Having moved away from my hometown, I don't stop following sports, so I'm fallen out of that whole scene. But I think it's wrong for people to bag on soccer and then promote some other sport because they're basically all the same. I hate to say it.
Yeah,
if you know what's going on, you can appreciate the nuance.
Right, exactly. I don't think there's anything wrong with one sport versus the other. I mean, I just did an entire show on bowling, so
right,
and some people don't even consider that a real sport, which is weird. But I don't think there's anything wrong with any sport that's out there. I think that I do feel that there's a real disparity between women's sports and men's sports in this country, and it doesn't make any sense at all to me. The WNBA has players that are just as talented as those in the NBA, and their ticket sales are probably less than a third of what the NBA stars are. So it's very unfortunate. Living in Connecticut, the Yukon Huskies, their women's basketball team is one of the best in the nation all the time. So there's a huge community around women's sports, or women's basketball at least, but you have to be like the top ever to generate any sort of interest in it. And I'm sure women's basketball in other college towns across the U.S., if their team isn't doing as well as ours is, then there's probably, next to no interest in them. So it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
What a downer. Why are we talking about this? I guess because it needs to be talked about, It's unfortunate.
Sure. Give ladies a look. Give them a chance. Those women's soccer people, I don't know much about soccer, but boy, oh boy, do they kick that ball. I tell you what.
I played soccer for a season when I was 12, 13 years old. I was a very awkward kind of adolescent kid and did not enjoy it, but at least learned the rules of how to play the game. So now I can at least watch matches and understand what's going on. So
yeah, I mean, I played baseball my whole life, so a lot of people think that's really boring. I'm really interested in the minute stuff, and that's why I really feel like if you're a sports person, you got your one sport, because you know all the small things that go into why it is exciting and why the small things matter, you appreciate it more. I think it just translates. If you cared enough about another sport, you would notice all those things and it would become interesting to you as well.
Exactly.
Knock off the gatekeeping, guys. Just let everyone be happy with their own thing. Don't yuck somebody else's yum.
I agree. 100%.
All right, we turned it around. Now we're positive.
Now we're positive again. We're going to stay positive because we have this absolutely ridiculous game coming up next for my last pick. Yeah, this is a track called Japanese Marketplace from Gekisha Boy 2 Tokodane Daikoku Nippon. This came out on the PS2 in 2001, composed by Takane Ukobu. Let's take a listen. right, that was Japanese Marketplace from Gekisha Boy 2, Tokodane Daikoku Nippon. That came out on the PS2 in 2001, composed by Takane Okubo. Yeah, I've had a lot of really obscure games tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like I've dug up a couple of decent tracks. I really, really like this one. It's, I don't know, kind of like a sad hip-hop cowboy track,
Yes.
I think is the best description.
I think that also kind of describes a lot of people that I live nearby in Florida. Sad hip-hop cowboys.
Oh God, that's so sad and so true. The reason I found this game is because I had played the original Gekisha Boy on the PC Engine, TurboGrafx 16, via just looking through random games on my TurboGrafx EverDrive, and really enjoyed it, and was just kind of looking up if there was an English translation for it, because it was a Japanese-only game with a lot of dialogue, and just happened to notice in my search that there was a PS2 sequel that had come out, so I checked it out and really enjoyed the soundtrack, so the rest is history.
Yeah, it's a cool song, and apparently the game is actually pretty fun, so echoing what you said.
It is.
I saw a lot of really positive feedback on it when I was trying to learn a little bit about the game. What's the I don't know if you listened to the soundtrack for the sequel much, but is it also similarly zany?
You mean the prequel, the original one?
Either.
Because this is the sequel. Yeah, the original one is just it's very light and fluffy, kind of TurboGrafx chiptune. But this one, the different stages are different types of areas. So there's one that's like a haunted house kind of a level, which has a very spooky Halloween style music. This one's a Japanese Marketplace, so I guess they're trying to go for like a traditional Japanese sound, even though to me it sounds kind of more like Western.
Yeah, I guess maybe like the instruments, but the way that they're used reads to me much more as Western.
Yeah, but they all have different kinds of themes to them. So, but yeah, the soundtrack is good. It's all sequenced music, so which is kind of neat. So this is all kind of like MIDI that's just sequenced in the game as you're playing it. So you can't really expect like grand Red Book audio style soundtracks. It's very kind of chiptune-ish sounding, which is kind of cool.
Right.
Do you know how to play this game? Like what it entails?
Yeah,
gone into that
sort
at all?
of. So from what I remember reading, you are like trying to take pictures of different things,
Right.
and so you're like going out into the world trying to get your. I forget what you have to get a bunch of series of like rare pictures to.
Yeah, you're a photojournalist, and you've got to appease your boss for the next issue of the newspaper, and so he'll send you out. For this game, there's an extremely rare... I don't think it ever got released, but they were going to make a European PAL version of this game. So it was fully translated into English, and there is a video...
Yeah, I have a little bit about that, I think, somewhere.
Yeah, there's a video on YouTube of like the first like 2 stages being played in English, but that's all that exists anywhere.
So I will jump through some of this because I think we talked a little bit about the original game was Gekisha Boy, which is, as we said, an action photography video game. Tomcat System made it, and it was published by Irem for the PC Engine. I guess it's probably worth mentioning that Gekibo is a portmanteau of Gekisha Boy, which is Photograph Boy. And it was called Photo Boy in Europe, at least the original. So in 2002, the Japanese version of Gekibo was re-released on the PlayStation as Volume 94 of the Simple 1500 series under the title The Cameraman, Gekisha Boy Oma Kefu. So the Simple series is a number of budget-priced console games that are published by the Japanese company D3 Publisher, and they're developed by a ton of different companies, and they're on a bunch of different systems, but the price of the games in yen is included in the title of the series. So, for example, Simple 1500 is about 1,500 yen, or roughly $15.
Yep.
So
there's a Simple 2000 series, too.
Yep, and I think there's maybe even a Simple 1000 series, but As far as why they renamed the game, the simple series games are usually prefixed with the word "the" in English for some reason. So, for example, the shogi or the mahjong.
Okay.
So I guess they wanted it to be the Gekibo. But yeah, we were talking about the sequel for PlayStation 2. It was optioned for a European release by JVC Musical Industries, and it was scheduled for release in 2001. And in fact, even I think it was on Wikipedia, I saw that it actually came out there, but I'm not sure about that because from what I read, JVC's gaming division like imploded before the release, so I don't think it actually ever made it out there.
I haven't
You
been able
talked
to
about
find
the video. I saw that there was a review copy of the English version of the game that came out on eBay, and even though it looks just like a burned CD, it sold for $300. So I think there might be even a ROM somewhere floating around. I think you could probably play it.
Well, yeah, that's basically, I think that copy was what the video was made of, but the person who purchased it has not like released the ROM. They never like copied the disc and released it to the public yet. So those English videos only exist from the people that own that copy that was sold on eBay. They're being selfish jerks.
It's too bad because it seems like it's from the reviews I read, it seems like it's supposed to be pretty fun. The European version was even going to have a competition in partnership with Kodak, which was interesting because when Kodak first announced instant film cameras in 1976, Polaroid announced that they were suing them, accusing Kodak of stealing its patent. And there's going to be a little bit more on that to come, but there was a 10-year federal lawsuit where Polaroid wanted $12 billion, and the court ruled in favor of Polaroid and ordered them to cease in producing their like instant cameras and pay them $909.5 million instead of $12 billion. But still a pretty heavy check cut. The sequel, the PlayStation version, made use of the PlayStation printer and Sony's Picture Paradise initiative, so I guess maybe the Japanese version used it, which is kind of interesting. I don't know much about the PlayStation printer, but I assume it just does what it says on the tin and lets you print out your fake pictures you took from your game.
Interesting. Useless, but interesting.
Exactly. And then just briefly, how could I not talk about Polaroids when the game is called Polaroid Pete in Europe? The original Polaroid Corporation was founded in Cambridge, Massachusetts by Edwin Land in 1937. And Land was compared to Steve Jobs as kind of a scientist who guided the company as a CEO, and he did it for a bunch of decades. And his name appears on 533 different U.S. patents, which is second only to Thomas Edison, who had 1,093.
Interesting.
Polaroid did about $1.4 billion of business all over the world in 1979. And in kind of an unusual move, they never diversified into any other businesses, and they never sold out to another company, and they never borrowed money on a long-term basis. So they were just
straight and narrow.
We're just going to do they had a very narrow focus, and they got their start by grafting polarizer technology onto basically every product imaginable, like 3D movies, and they made glare-reducing goggles for dogs. Just like polarizing technology. That was their bread and butter. Until they eventually moved into instant photography, which is kind of, you think of Polaroid as like, I can't remember the business term for when a name brand replaces the generic, like Kleenex or Googling, and you like use it as like a verb. But instant photography, I think people probably would think Polaroid, right? You don't just think of, I don't know, I can't even think of another name brand camera. But basically, how they work is they pack all of the operations of a darkroom into the film itself. So the film catches light from a camera lens, and it turns into a negative, and then they reverse the image to make it a positive one. And it has to start the process at the right time and end it at the right time to make sure that the image lasts. And then there are these like mechanical rollers that push the film out of the compartment in the camera, and the pressure from the rollers breaks a chemical seal, which sort of starts the darkroom process, and then it develops in front of your face.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't have too much on Polaroid. It does have kind of a long history, and they did some other interesting stuff, but that was the high points, I think. You can read up on Polaroid yourself.
Yeah, I do find it interesting that you said that the game was going to have a contest in collaboration with Kodak when the game was called Polaroid Pete.
Yeah. I
maybe that's why it never got released. Maybe there was some sort of contention there. Or maybe they had the ears of both companies.
I mean, $12 billion lawsuit between two companies, and now they're getting together for some partnership on like a European license. I don't know. It seemed doomed to fail.
It's a head scratcher.
Yeah. And I couldn't even find what the competition, like what type of competition. I have no. I don't think it might have just been like a mail-in contest or something for all I know.
Yeah. But the game is fun. It's a side-scrolling game. You move Pete around, and you also have this little target reticle that you move around, kind of like Wild Guns, if you can imagine that. Instead of shooting bullets, you're shooting pictures, and as you walk through this world, all of this like ridiculous stuff happens, like cars crash and balls bounce and UFOs fly overhead and I don't know, whales crash into billboards and et cetera, and basically you've got to have your reticle in the right time at the right moment in the right place to capture these crazy events as they're happening, and then you get more money for better pictures. And sometimes your editor will give you goals of things that you need to shoot as you're going through the stage in order to pass on to the next stage or to get extra bonus cash. So it's fun. It's a lot of memorization. The more you play the stage, the more you kind of learn what happens in what sequence, so you can try to get the right picture at the right time. But there's enough going on the stage, and the animation's like crazy and funny enough that it makes playing over and over again kind of an enjoyable kind of deal. So
that's cool that they found a way to do that. I like that. Seems like a pretty cool idea.
It's very unique.
So it's no Pokemon Safari or whatever that game was called. But,
Pokemon Snap?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it's actually really similar to that.
Slightly a little bit more strange.
Yeah, there's, from what I remember from the PC Engine version, there's like quasi-adult content. Like there's a guy that'll like flash open a trench coat, and you gotta snap a picture at the right time, even though I think it's mosaiced out, but you can tell that there's stuff there. Or a woman walks over a vent, and the vent will blow up her dress, and then you gotta take a picture of that. So
this just responsible journalism, this guy.
Of course, put that in the paper, front page. Woman walks over vent. News story of the century.
Man's coat opens.
Grossness ensues.
Well, Ed, I hate to tell you that we've run out of music. But
that's unfortunate.
You haven't run out of quiz questions.
I've been waiting for this.
Because I came prepared.
All right.
And I think it's time for you to subject yourself to the Dyad Challenge quiz.
I will do my best. Is this all about how film was developed? Because I'm going to fail if that's the case.
Well, no, because I just informed you all about that, so you don't even need to. That would just be too easy. I can't do something that I've taught you. This is going to be trivia, and what would this trivia be if not for impossible to answer correctly based on knowledge?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
We talked a little bit about the Simple series of games, and so the quiz today is going to be challenging you to pick out the fake game from the Simple series.
Okay. All right.
So I will give you a list of games. 3 of them are real, and 1 of them is not a real game from the Simple series.
Okay. All right. I feel moderately prepared for this because I've played a lot of these games. So
okay. I believe that you've played a lot of them. I'm not sure you've played a lot of the ones that I'm going to ask you about.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, let's start with question 1. Oh, we got 5 questions.
Okay,
just like
questions.
Last time.
Right.
Last time it came down to the wire, I think. You think you were 3 and 2.
Yep.
So let's see if we can.
I think I failed the first 2 and made it up with the last 3. I got 3 in a row.
All right. So, question number 1. Which of the following is not a real game from the Simple series? A. The My Town Layout 2 Town Maker 2.1. B. The Super Power Dare Die Team. C. Fastest! Family Car King Acceleration Legend. Or D. Teary Eyes Quest Journey to the Love.
Wow. Okay.
You've probably played a couple of these, but not all of them. That's why it must be a difficult question, I think.
I don't think I've played any of these, to tell you the truth.
Do you need to hear those choices again?
Yeah, give it away one more time.
Okay.
Please.
Choice number 1. The My Town Layout 2 Town Maker 2.1.
Okay.
Choice 2. The Super Power Dare Die Team. Choice number 3. Fastest! Family Car King Acceleration Legend. Or 4. Teary Eyes Quest Journey to the Love.
See, now there's two of them without the at the beginning, which you said was a prerequisite.
I know, and I mentioned that specifically, that most of them have it. It's almost as though I'm trying to trick you.
Yeah. So two of them have a the. I'm going to say Teary Eyes Quest Journey to the Love. It just doesn't sound as ridiculous as the other ones.
Well, what is ridiculous? Because Teary Eyes Quest Journey to the Love is indeed a game.
Ah, phooey.
The fake answer was choice B, the Super Power Dare Die Team, which is actually the Chinese translation of the female cast reboot of Ghostbusters.
Okay.
So you're 0 for 1, but
0 for 1.
I think you just needed to get eased into it. And if history has taught us anything, it is that you are a second half quiz champion.
This is true, but I don't want to jinx it, so...
All right, are you prepared for question number 2?
Let's keep it going. Lay it on me.
Which of the following is not a real game from the Simple series? Choice number 1. The small grass is feel ashamed to smile. Please don't bother it. Choice number 2. The fantasy love adventure. Her legend? My lithography. Choice number 3. You can attend again. The primary school for adults. Or choice number 4. Run through abnormal weather! The storm of Drift Rally Super Speed Machines.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You're too good at this.
Let me know if you need to hear those again.
I don't want to hear them again. All right, give me the first two. Those are...
Choice number 1. The small grass is feel ashamed to smile. Please don't bother it. Choice number 2. The fantasy love adventure. Her legend. My lithography. Do you want 3 and 4 as well?
Sure.
You
Why
can
not?
attend again. The primary school for adults. Or 4. Run through abnormal weather. The storm of Drift Rally Super Speed Machines.
Oh, man, that sounds fun. Primary school for adults just reminds me of Billy Madison.
I believe you mean you can attend again. The primary school for adults.
Yes. The first one is about not stepping on grass.
The small
Basically,
grasses feel ashamed to smile. Please don't bother it.
please don't bother the small grass. It doesn't want to smile at you. I'm gonna go with number 1. I mean, it's how could that be a game? It's
You got it. You're 1 out of 2.
all right. Excellent.
That is actually a poorly translated sign that was in a public park in China.
Okay. I was wondering what you.
There's even a picture that I have included in the notes that I will be sending to you.
Excellent.
So, hey, you're doing better than I had feared. I thought these were going to be too hard, but no.
It's difficult. I'm kind of hanging on by a thread here, but I'm 1 for 1, so I'm feeling good.
Clearly, you just have to go with your gut.
Yes.
And your gut will tell you what is the right answer.
Considering I have a 1 in 4 chance of winning here.
That too
on
will
each
help.
one, so I'm beating the odds.
Except for this one has 10 choices.
Oh my god!
Okay, are you ready for question number 3?
Question 3, let's go.
Which of the following is not a real game from the Simple series? Choice number 1, The Baby Champion. Come on, baby. Okay. All right. Woosah, the Human Torch was denied a bank loan. Okay. Choice number 2, The Daughter Raising Simulation. Father and Company. Choice number 3, The Trial. Novice Judicial Officer Tsukasa Momoto's 10 Trial Files. The Saiban. Or choice 4, The Story of the Vivian Girls in what is known as the realms of the unreal of the Glandeco and Gelenian war storm caused by the Child Slave Rebellion. Would you like to hear those choices one more time?
Yeah, give them to me one more time.
Choice number 1, The Baby Champion. Come on, baby.
I just wanted you to say that one again.
I'll say it as many times as you want. Choice number 2, The Daughter Raising Simulation. Father and Company.
Okay.
Choice number 3, The Trial. Novice Judicial Officer Tsukasa Momoto's 10 Trial Files. The Saiban. Or choice 4, The Story of the Vivian Girls in what is known of the realms of the unreal of the Glandeco and Gelenian war storm caused by the Child Slave Rebellion.
All right, number 4 just has way too long of a title to even be a game. Even though that Champion Baby one sounds...
The Baby Champion. Come on, baby.
Come on, baby. No, I'm gonna go with 4. I was leaning towards 1 and possibly even 2, but I'm gonna go with 4. It's just with my gut.
You're right.
Sweet.
And I could talk about choice number 4 for an hour because it is from a book called In the Realms of the Unreal. It's a 15,145 page work bound in 15 typed volumes by, it is considered outsider art, meaning, well, the rude way of saying it is someone who is not a professional artist, or in this case, writer. And this guy was a janitor who had some mental disabilities, and over 6 decades, his name's Harvey Darger. He hand illustrated stories using techniques of tracing images cut from magazines and catalogs and arranged these huge panoramic landscapes and painted in watercolors, some as big as 30 feet wide.
Wow.
And he painted on both sides, and he wrote this narrative about kids, and he had almost no actual exposure to people. He had little quirky things like the mortar boards, the graduation caps. He called them college professor hats, and I think the villains all wore them. But it's just a really interesting thing that I always hang up on, and it struck me as somewhat similar to a Simple Series game title.
Absolutely.
But the good news is that this means you can actually go play The Baby Champion. Come on, baby.
I'm gonna need to download that one and check that one out. That sounds fun.
I don't know what that game is about, but how could I not use it?
I will know before the weekend is up.
So
I will find it.
So you're 2 out of 3, doing good.
All right.
I mean,
one more, and I'm good to go.
Worst case scenario, you have not embarrassed yourself, even if you get all the rest wrong.
I appreciate that.
Right.
All right, let's move on.
Question number 4: Which of the following is not a real game from the Simple series? Choice number 1: Let's speak to an alien! ! What's an alien? Choice number 2: Fresh-picked swimsuits! ! The swim meet of covered women party girls. Oh, covered woman party girls. Sorry. Choice number 3: The stolen figurine asked you a question. Or choice number 4: The license acquisition simulation version for revised road traffic laws.
Okay.
Would you like to hear those choices again?
Go for it.
All right. Choice number 1: Let's speak to an alien! What's an alien?
What is an alien?
Choice number 2: Fresh-picked swimsuits! The swim meet of covered woman party girls. Choice number 3: The stolen figurine asked you a question. Or choice number 4: The license acquisition simulation version for revised road traffic laws.
All right, I'm going to go with I'm going to go with number 3 because it just sounds a little abstract for a game, unless it's a quiz game.
Would you say that it sounds like nonsense? Because that is an answer that I used a nonsense generator to come up with.
Yay!
So you are correct. 3 out of 4.
Although
right.
I would play it. I would definitely play it. I could imagine a narrative of somebody going and stealing a figurine of some sort, and it suddenly asks you a question, and then it turns into a quiz game.
Exactly. And just
Like I'm playing
to
now.
give you an idea of what else you can get here, the sky says hello. Spam has your skin crawling. Or a fly is omnipresent, much like candy. So you can
I
have
like
lots
it.
of fun with the nonsense generator.
Yes.
All right. So we're on the last question.
All right.
It's impossible to embarrass yourself.
Yes. Excellent. I've already won.
All right. Which of the following is not a real game from the Simple series? Choice number 1, the maid outfit and machine gun. Choice number 2, buffalo, 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 buffalo. Choice number 3, pioneer, man lessons. Or choice number 4, the escape from a secret room, moonlit apartment volume.
I'm pretty sure I've played 1 and 4.
Okay. The maid outfit and the machine gun. And the escape from a secret room, moonlit apartment volume. Which leaves you with 2 other choices. Choice number 2, buffalo, 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 buffalo. Or choice number 3, pioneer, man lessons. There's an exclamation point after pioneer.
Okay. But not after man lessons?
No.
I would think it would come after man lessons. That would be a thing you'd need to proclaim.
Pioneer, question mark? Man lessons, exclamation.
Or pioneer man lessons. Or pioneer man lessons.
Let's go. Let's spend. We can spend another hour talking about all the different ways we
Just
can make pioneer man lessons.
Repunctuate the game into something completely different. I mean, the buffalo seems too obvious, but I don't know. I don't have anything to lose at this point because I've won.
That's true.
But leave it to Japan to call a game buffalo, 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 buffalo. I'm gonna go with buffalo, 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 buffalo.
That is correct.
Yes.
So I was hoping that I could trick you on that, but this is actually a somewhat famous, grammatically correct sentence, which means those buffaloes from Buffalo that are intimidated by buffaloes from Buffalo intimidate buffaloes from Buffalo.
I did not know that buffalo was a synonym for intimidate.
Yeah.
But I guess now I know.
In Buffalo, New York, or I guess there could be other buffaloes, and then the fuzzy animals we all know and love. But most importantly, you got 4 out of 5 correct, so your quiz average is skyrocketing.
Oh my goodness. I gotta admit, I was pretty buffaloed by this quiz, but I have come out on top.
You have shown that of all the things to test you in, your knowledge of obscure games should not be one.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna Michael Jordan the next quiz, and I'm gonna give you a quiz next time.
Oh.
How do you feel about that?
I feel fine.
Okay, good. So Dyad Challenge 3, it will be you in the hot seat, me doling out the questions. And,
That's good. I'm never too proud to be made to look foolish. So I welcome your challenge.
I feel exactly the same way. But thank you for coming up with the quiz. Thank you for coming up with some awesome music and some incredible factoids for this episode. I had just as much fun this time as I did last time. And I think Logan did too. He's probably fast asleep by now, but I'm sure he would thank you as well.
I'm going to make like Logan and pass out in a second here.
I am too. Yeah, it's getting to be almost midnight over here.
Yeah.
Craziness.
Well, thank you again for having me.
Absolutely.
It was a pleasure and a lot of fun.
It's always fun to hang out with you, sir. What do you got going on? Are there any more Dyad presents in the works, or are you just kind of chilling out now?
I have some in various states of completion. I mentioned at the top of the show that I had a new child, so that took a lot of work, and I've actually been spending a lot of my free time working on demo scene projects. So, all you Impulse Project fans will appreciate that, I guess. I've been doing artwork for graphics for a couple of different things. A lot of music releases for our friend Michael, aka Mebri. I've been doing some art for his stuff and working on doing some graphics for a demo right now, which I guess I probably can't talk about too much yet, but it's taking up a lot of my free time. And I just started a new job with a miserable long commute, so hopefully I'll get back into finishing the episodes that I've started. But, keep your podcast feed active. You never know when I drop an episode in there.
Awesome. And yeah, the art is incredible, so definitely go check it out. I know you've been posting a lot of it here and there when new releases come out.
Yeah, you can always find me on Twitter.
Yeah, Michael Bridgewater's been doing some crazy stuff in C64 music. He's become quite a proficient composer over the past year or so, and he's been making some good grades on demo scene parties and stuff, so definitely worth checking that out. And your art usually accompanies his releases when stuff comes out, so it's great to see you two kind of working together and playing off each other's strengths for crappy old technology.
Kindred spirits, brothers in arms.
Exactly. And I do look forward to every Dyad Presents that comes out, because there's always a lot to learn from, or at least a lot to be entertained by when you make a show. So keep it up if you do have the time.
Well, I appreciate it. That's the goal.
Awesome. So as usual, to wrap up the show, I want to thank Indira J for the art, and Trevin Hughes, otherwise known as Dread, for the podcast theme song. You can find us on iTunes or Facebook at facebook.com/group/the VG Embassy, or on Twitter at the VG Embassy. And you can check out our Patreon site at patreon.com/the VG Embassy. As always, I'd like to thank my Patreon members at the tourist level: Shoryu Kenny, Cameron Childs, Michael Bridgewater from the Forever Sound Version podcast, who we just talked about, our VG emissaries: Chris Murray, Chris Myers, Donovan Orfino, some guy named Ben Dishman, otherwise known as the Dyad. I don't know, just some dude. John Jekyll, Chris Steenerson, Jordan Worma from the Table to Stage podcast, and Volts Supreme. Our audio attaché members: Cameron Worma, Carlos from the Heroes 3 podcast, Scott McElhone, and our patron saint of VG podcasts, Alex the Messenger at the VG Ambassador tier.
AKA the baby champion. Come on, baby.
Come on, baby. He's a good dude. All right, man. Thank you again so much for hanging out with me. We'll be back with a Dyad Challenge 3 or another blind listen, or we'll find some excuse to get you back on the mic with me at some point, because I always have a blast with hanging out with you.
Anytime. I love it every time.
Awesome. All right, guys. We will see you back in 2 weeks for another episode of the VG Embassy. Take care.
Bye-bye.